The slice of life genre is kind of overpowered, both in the sense that there's such an abundance of shows that could fall into the category, but also because the label is a little too far-reaching. How is it possible that two anime as far removed as Ichigo Marshmallow and Planetes could ever occupy the same literary bracket? Most sources define the term as referring to the portrayal of day-to-day human life, but aren't most anime about portraying life to some extent? What exactly makes Shirobako slice of life and Cowboy Bebop not slice of life? Now, in a lot of cases, the confusion largely stems from messy labeling. While shows like Toradora, Clannad, Nana, and Haruhi often assign the auxiliary title of slice of life, when you take a closer look at their writing and presentation, they pretty clearly adhere to different genre conventions entirely. But even in strictly dedicated slice of life works, there tend to be huge discrepancies between what seems to constitute a slice of life show. Maybe it's because life itself is so damn broad and difficult to quantify. These discrepancies aren't necessarily fundamental differences in content, but rather the format by which that content is presented. So, with this video I'm going to try and establish 4 important delineations within the world of slice of life anime, and maybe even impose some order on this seemingly incorrigible genre.
It's about goddamn time.
Number 1. Gag Driven slice of life. A simple enough concept to understand. These are shows built around delivering jokes. Whether they be explosive punchlines or just cheeky retorts, most scenes are framed around building up to an eventual comedic climax. These shows are typically comprised of short, segmented scenarios, be it in the form of lazy conversations or maybe even flashbacks, and it's rare for a whole episode to maintain a constant story. There may be something resembling an overarching narrative here and there, but for the most part, shows like this could pretty much be watched in any order. Series like Nichijou and Azumanga Daiho are possibly the truest form of the phrase slice of life, as we're literally presented the routines and interactions of the characters in slices. Now, what separates a show like Nichijou from a more straightforwardly comedy-driven series like One Punch Man or Prison School is that a good gag-driven slice of life series isn't always just trying to make you laugh. An excellent example of what I'm talking about is Lucky Star. And I know I bring this show up all the goddamn time, but somebody has to, it's freaking masterful. Even though almost every scene in Lucky Star is comprised of a slow build up to the eventual joke, the show isn't always trying to be laugh out loud funny. Sometimes it's just trying to be relatable, or evocative, or straight up weird. Obviously, the quality of a show's actual material is massively important, but just as valuable to me is how broad a series' sense of scope is. There's this scary adherence to formula that pervades so many otherwise excellent anime in this genre. I always think of the old Roadrunner cartoons, or Tom and Jerry or something, when trying to put my finger on what makes effective gag-driven comedy. We all know what's going to happen the moment we start watching. We've known for 60 years what's going to happen. But that doesn't mean how we get to that conclusion has to be the same every time, or that we can't experience something interesting along the way. I find that the comedy in the daily lives of high school boys, for example, is usually really solid. Its timing, concept, and execution is for the most part pretty great, but it's always the same kind of jokes with the same kind of characters with the same sense of humor. It makes it almost impossible for me to watch multiple episodes in a row without feeling the urge to take a break. Meanwhile, shows like Watamote, Lucky Star, Nichijou, and Sakamoto Desu Ka relish in being as out there and unpredictable as possible. Humor doesn't flourish through repetition, it's all about catching the viewer off guard. In the 6th episode of Lucky Star, Tsukasa has this really beautiful moment when she's listening to a seashell, the kind of thing you'd expect to see from like Aria or Totoro or something, and you know, the show could have just let her have that, but of course it ends up spinning it into a joke that she's the butt of. This scene is noteworthy not only because it's a beautifully timed and executed gag, but also because of how cleverly appropriate it is. We know Tsukasa to be naive, meek, giving, and overly trusting, and we also know that the surprisingly cruel world of the show loves to abuse this for comedy. This scene wouldn't have been nearly as funny if it was happening to any old character we didn't care about, and yet the excellent joke does nothing to take away from the beauty and serenity that the scene provided, and that's really what puts this show on another level for me. This ability to be melancholic, or poignant, or sentimental, while never abandoning the framework of a jokey, lighthearted sitcom, and it's this quality I want to see from more shows of its ilk. Number 2. Cute girls doing cute things. We all know these ones. Round up some kawaii girls, or guys if you want, and put them in a series of scenarios that leads to cuteness. The number one goal of these shows is to be charming, and the only way to be charming is like this.
Oh boy, it looks like it's suicide again for me.
I'm kidding, shows like this can definitely be refreshing and enjoyable, and there's a surprising amount of method to the genre. People often ponder that in a subgenre with such a simple avenue of appeal, what exactly separates the good from the bad? The easiest way to answer this is by examining probably my favourite show of its kind, Is the Order a Rabbit? This show doesn't just work because it stars the very cutest girls doing the very cutest things, but because every single aspect of the series exists to be cute. The comedy is goofy and smile-inducing, the setting is quaint and comforting, the voice acting is chipper and lively, the background music is bubbly and jubilant, the character animation is endearing and adorable. It may very well be the most perfectly cute anime series in existence, and it all adds up to a refreshing and frankly irresistible whole. But the criticisms do hold some water. If these shows are so similar to each other, why do we need so many of them doing the same things? Just as with gag-driven series, way too many of these cute girls shows shoot themselves in the foot with their stubborn adherence to formula. I don't want to watch the same character types in the same scenarios making the same jokes and reacting the same ways with a new gimmick each time. For every cute girls show that really shines, there's about 10 mediocre ones cluttering up each new anime season. The shows in this genre that stand out tend to be the really competent ones like Gochi Yusa, and the really creative ones like Milky Holmes. Character design is obviously hugely important here. After all, half the fun of this genre is rounding up all the figures and merch, since the target audience for these kinds of shows tend to be otaku, be it male or female. Let me stress again, there's no rule in place saying a series can't do the exact same thing with a male cast. Just adhere to the already established formula and you're golden. Number 3, Iyashikei. Now maybe you're thinking, Iyashikei, really? Almost every show you've talked about so far could be considered Iyashikei. And yeah, I get that, but just walk with me here, okay? For those that don't know, Iyashikei is essentially a concept that is synonymous with the terms soothing, comforting, and my personal favourite, healing. These shows depict the day-to-day mundanity of life in all its boring glory, but through the magical lens of anime manage to lend it an entirely new layer of meaning and emotional resonance. These shows put a huge emphasis on whimsical atmosphere, beautiful moments, and heartwarming messages and dialogue, to the point that they have an almost therapeutic effect on the viewer, with narrative tension kept incredibly low. While these shows can often wander around a series' timeline with reckless abandon, they can just as often take place in real time, or at least as close to real time as anime can reasonably allow. A perfect example of a day in the life anime is Hidamari Sketch. In fact, the episodes are literally named after days of the year. Every episode begins with Yuno waking up, while every episode ends with her winding down for bed, and she oftentimes runs into the exact same scenarios and interactions over the course of the day. You might be wondering, what's the point of watching something when you know exactly what's going to happen, especially when that something is nothing? Well, for one thing, putting this hyper-emphasis on such minor details allows the audience to develop a believable sense of that character's routine. With each like, dislike, relationship, and idiosyncrasy, you're filling in that character's lifestyle and personality, and a well-realized setting is an immersive setting. Obviously, a strong audio-visual presentation is key to the success of any Iyashikei series, but equally crucial is a sense of meaning and purpose. How do you impose meaning on something as inherently chaotic as human life itself? What makes a show like Aria so powerful, but a show like Glassslip so directionless? Well, to be truly effective, an Iyashikei series needs a strong sense of theming. These shows don't just work because they're pretty or relaxing, they work because they're evocative. Non Biyori evokes feelings of youth and nostalgia. Aria highlights the innate beauty and miraculousness of human nature, while Yokohama Shopping Log explores how culture can be eroded by time. These aren't ideas communicated on a narrative level or through clunky exposition. The idea is understood implicitly by the audience, all thanks to smart directing, clever imagery, and solid characterization. And that's what makes Iyashikei so distinct from all the other stories out there. Number 4, character-driven slice of life. We've reached the big one, what is probably my very favourite subset of slice of life, but also the most difficult to really explain. Whereas all of the other categories I've outlined can play pretty loose with the idea of telling a story, these are shows in which the narrative is defined less by what is happening, but rather the growth of one or more characters. The stories of these shows aren't often characterized by high stakes or epic tangible conflict, but rather characters achieving something internally, be it through coming of age or just overcoming personal obstacles. For example, the first episode of K-On! And the last episode of K-On! Both take place in the exact same setting with the exact same characters. Ostensibly, it doesn't seem like much has changed, however the girls that we know and love have undergone a substantial evolution as a result of their experiences and relationships, and emerge at the other side entirely different people. Character dynamics oftentimes take center stage in this genre, with several whole series being framed around relationship development, and while they're more than free to let the emotions run as high as they deem necessary, it's crucial for the genre that it remains grounded and relatable. Shows like Your Lie in April, Showa Genroku Rakugo Shinju, and Hibike Euphonium lean so strongly towards theatrical melodrama and interpersonal conflict that I'm more inclined to consider them straight up anime dramas, whereas shows like Usagi Drop, Tori Tori, and Silver Spoon hit the perfect sweet spot. Another thing that these shows require to be effective is an exceptional amount of depth, both of character and setting. If a show's character dynamics don't feel genuine, it's impossible for us to really believe in them. If their conflict isn't believable, it's impossible for us to relate to them. These shows, more so than any, are dependent on the relationship the audience builds with the cast, and for this to happen, all of the series' elements must stem from a human core. But the thing that really sets these solely character-driven narratives apart from coming-of-age stories like, say, Fooly Cooly, is their radically different approach to character development. You see, in most anime, character arcs usually take place in the most grandiose fashion possible, and character development is usually accompanied by a big speech, where the character points to the sky and tells everyone what they learnt today. Which is great, I certainly don't want that to go anywhere, but real life doesn't really work like this. Most people tend to undergo the most development during quiet moments of introspection in between the hijinks, or sudden fleeting moments of clarity while looking through a photo album, or taking time off to clear your mind and get away from it all. It's this fundamentally different approach to writing that makes these shows so damn special, utilizing a long-lost writing and storytelling technique known as subtlety. This is how they manage to connect with people on such a profound and intimate level. It's because they speak to the most human parts of us, our need to be valuable to the people around us, our instinct to nurture and protect, our belief in empathy and community, and of course, our desire to grow and better ourselves. A character-driven slice of life series is one that doesn't just portray life as its format, but outright examines life as a theme itself, which is why it's so easy to see parts of ourselves in them. Anyway, those are the 4 prominent subsets of slice of life anime I've encountered over the years. Now, of course, a few of these shows could probably be considered 2 or 3 of these subsets at once, and the boundaries between them are decently blurred at best. My goal with this video isn't to establish firm rules about how we should class shows. In fact, it's the opposite. Us anime fans have a stubborn tendency to amass all kinds of works together based on their ostensible similarities, while paying superficial attention to all the things that make them unique. Maybe it's something innate about our physiological makeup that drives us to quantify everything, and I'm the same way, but in our never-ending quest to systematize, categorize, and alphabetize any and every anime under the sun, we can oftentimes diminish all the important nuances that make these shows so very different and so impossibly good. If slice of life is still something we're willing to call a genre, it's definitely my favourite, and I'm interested to know if you'd have even more subgenres to add to this list. What shows do you think defy these classifications, and maybe even have some more creative names to replace the ones I came up with? Let me know in the comments. Also, I started a Patreon, because of course I did. If you love my videos, feel perfectly free to give me all your money. Don't let me stop you. I'll see you soon.